The Jails Law Enforcement Courts Committee meeting is called to order. Item number 2 on the agenda is the adoption of the agenda. Could I have a motion to approve it?
Mr. Chairman, a motion to approve the agenda.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. Item number 3 is the juvenile detention report, and I got a message late this afternoon that Director Collins is not going to be able to be with us tonight. So if any of the my colleagues have questions for her or questions on her report, we'll get them to her and get some answers. Are there any questions? All right, thank you. Item number 4 on the agenda is the Sheriff Office reports. Chief Deputy Cantrell.
Okay, Jay Cantrell with the Washington County Sheriff's Office. Our enforcement activity is up a little bit over 2020. Not to be, I mean, that's not surprising to us. COVID was in the middle of 2020, so we knew that those numbers are down a little bit. But just our type of calls have been more interesting, I guess, and requiring more manpower. We've had some fatality accidents, some very graphic fatality accidents. Just worked a fatality ATV accident with a 14-year-old boy over the weekend. Found a lady that had died back last fall, probably, down in the southwest part of the county that I guess the daughter had been collecting Social Security along after her mother died, and so the body was just in the house, covered up with some blankets on the couch for several months. So got that case. Have had several shootings and violent type crimes. So I don't know if it's just COVID fatigue or COVID I'm ready to get out of the house or COVID I don't care, or if it's just kind of the trend that we're seeing across the country. But our guys on the enforcement side have been really busy. I'd be happy to
Yeah, are
take
there any
questions.
questions? All right, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Chair. My name is Randall Denzer from the Sheriff's Office. Starting out on our reports, the 4.2 and the next sheet, the 4.3, are kind of comparisons. If you look at them at the same time, as you can see, our intakes are back up 857, and back in 19, it was 1,100. And so we're creeping back up to where business is just as good or better than it was back in 19. So, and one thing to speak of before I forget it, as far as Chief, he reported all these dangerous folks and the shootings and all them, they all end up at our place. And we've got to figure out how to take care of them. They can't get along anywhere else, and it's getting to be quite a struggle. But anyway, on a different note, you can see our daily averages is back about up as far as what it was in 19, and that's really caused us problems. We're almost in a crisis mode trying to take care of these folks. Today's count was 662. After COVID, we got down to about 375, 400, and then it started to pick back up, and we hadn't looked back. You can see the other numbers. The state prisoners are down a little bit. We're trying to send all we can to help get our count down. We've talked to Madison County, and prosecutors trying to work with us, but all these folks that we turned out are coming back now. You know, we started our transports. You see the bottom part on miles. This last month we drove 33,000 miles. You know, you figure, you know, that times 12, how many miles that'll be at the end of the year. And in 2019 we drove 39,000. So all these folks are coming back to see us. So on them reports. On 4.4, you can see the count that day was 646. Like I said, yesterday it was 662. As far as, actually, everybody's coming back. Everybody's getting in trouble, getting out and doing something. So you can see how it's broke down. Our total pretrial, we're back up to almost 400. You know, you remember Ann always asked that number. That's what we was at 18 and 19. So we are, like I say, we're running out of room. And then 4.5 and 4.6 and 4.7 kind of run together on the numbers. You know, if you lay them out and look at them in July, you know, back in 19, we was releasing 23% without bond and trying to do everything we could do to get rid of people, which worked pretty good. And in 2020, you know, we did get rid of a lot of folks, up to 33%. Due to COVID and the medical and all that. So from that year to today, we're still releasing 30% of our total population, and we're still full. So there is more people coming in than we can get rid of. And you know, we've basically got, you know, the bottom of the barrel that you can't turn loose, and they're staying. And we're having to having to deal with it, trying to keep them safe and secure. On 4.8, it kind of speaks for itself. The pretrial has took right back off up where they're just right at 400. That's where we was before, and you know, it's still gaining. So we have more people than we have room for, as you all are aware of. And then our last sheet here are some more statistics that we gathered up just to give you an idea. You know, we've turned these people loose, and they was going to go to court, and they was going to be good. And this sheet here, we have 235 pretrials, and out of 235, their total charges is 873 charges. So they went out and they got in trouble once and twice and 10 times. So the average now of the people that come to jail have had been there 11 times. That's our average. So it doesn't do much good to turn them loose. But you know, we got to have space. But like I was saying, we're in a crisis mode. You know, on top of the population going back up, that let me get my statistics right here. Last week I had 72 sleeping on the floor. Only one was females. This week, we have 67 sleeping on the floor with four females that's on the floor. You know, a lot of this is due to COVID. I think we got 10 COVID blocks, and then on top of all these other people. But, you know, one of the worst thing is, like I say, we had 56 positives. You know, they come and go. They'll get down, they'll go back up. But when you got 56 positives, when you break that out with the ones that actually have it, the ones that's been exposed, and where you've got to move them, we're totally out of room. So let's see here. The last part of it is our employment, like we was talking about what the officers should make. We're down. We have been down 30. We're 27, 26 now. We may have one or two quit every week. You know, we have them going to McDonald's, and but we are in a crisis mode trying to take care of these people. And we don't want to get anybody hurt or killed. Hurt, I mean, really bad. We have officers now that you know, have one broke arm, black eyes. You know, they're in these altercations all the time. Our workers' comp has went up 79%. So, and I think in the last 2 weeks we've had 18 workers' comps. But that's mainly due to, we don't have enough personnel. So I'll leave that with you, that's where we're at. Don't want to entertain any questions.
Justice Fleming? Do I have the floor? You have the floor.
It's time to build, isn't it?
Well, we had our state, yes, sir. Let me say that first, yes, sir. But our criminal review board come up a couple weeks ago. We should be getting that report, and that's what he said. He said, you either need more space or less detainees, and he said, you gotta do something. I said,
Is the state been pretty good about taking their people, or are they still?
Yes, they probably, up until this last big COVID outbreak, we didn't have very many. They was taking them, we'd send down 15 or 20 every 2 or 3 weeks. Our number's probably as low as we've been on state inmates.
A lot of these people coming back, I know you said they're getting out, everybody keeps talking COVID, but they don't talk about drugs and alcohol. Is a lot of them coming back souped up and drugged up? Are they been coming back that way?
Yes, they're the new same charges, along with the failure it appears when they get caught. But yes, they get out and go right back to what they was doing before.
So it just hasn't changed any?
No.
Well, thank you, and thank you for your hard work.
Thank you, Chairman Johnson. A couple things I want to I don't think these individuals bouncing in and out of the jail is not working, and I think we're seeing that in some more high-profile things, and so I appreciate what you're telling us, and I think we're going to do whatever we can to act. The other thing I wanted to mention was with the American Rescue Plan, we can do enhanced pay, so I want to continue working with your office to see what we can do about that with detention officers, to see if we can continue to attract good people in those positions. I know that's going to be extremely important. Finally, a question I had for you. Judge Lindsay at our budget meeting was telling us that one of the bottlenecks is transporting the inmates to the courts with COVID restrictions. Can you walk us through kind of what you're seeing there and what the criteria is for transporting and that type of thing?
Sure. But what we run into is, when they come in, if they don't have any symptoms or signs, we test them when they first come in. But just normally you come in, you got to go into quarantine for 14 days. And so you've got that block started right there. So, you get almost to 14 days or whatever. And if somebody comes up positive, then you've got a 25-man block that some's positive, some has to go to quarantine and move to another block. Well, then you get these guys, they finally maybe get to the back, but at this time, when the prosecutor and everybody wants to see them, while we've been doing Zoom has worked good, if you can keep up the speed with as many as we have. But to bring somebody out of the quarantine blocks, we have attorneys, several people say, well, let's just bring them out. Well, we don't know what they're at that point. So you may spread COVID from them to the attorneys, you bring it up here to the officers, to the judge, the whole bit. So we got to get through the quarantine process and then be able to move them. But the hard part we're having is, as far as really trying to balance stuff is some of the judges are doing Zoom, some are wanting to see them, and so that's almost like double work for our transport, trying to make this all happen. So that's where we run in, and then when we got the new judgeship and everything, we didn't ask for any more transport officers or anything. We was going to see how it's working. Well, now at this point, we're moving juveniles also. So that added to our load, trying to get them to the court and get them back and all that. So that's our biggest dilemma. If we could all do Zoom, and you can't always, because some of the pleas, some of the stuff they have to really do in person. So that's what's really bottlenecking the system.
So if I'm understanding right, it's not necessarily the act of transporting, it's keeping them all quarantined and all that. And that's just the nature of what we're dealing with right now. There's no real alternative to that, right?
Right, because how many people, especially this new version that they supposedly that we have, is how many people could you infect, on one transport up here and back? When it goes into the courts, public defender's got to be there, the prosecutor and everybody else.
Understandable. Thank you, Major Denzer. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Item 5 on the agenda is a discussion on strategic COVID mitigation and jail bed allocation. Chief Deputy Cantrell or Sheriff Helder, or both? Item number 5.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think it's best if we tag team this, and I'll be referring to Jay a lot. He's done a lot of the legwork on this and has a great way of articulating what I oftentimes fail to get out of my mouth in the right way, but Jay can do it. But we've got our moment in front of the mic and in front of you. We haven't met in a minute about this particular issue, but I know we were talking about pay and personnel issues. So you're my committee, and I want to let you know where we're at. We had a staff meeting today. Randall pointed out that on the detention side only, we're in the upper 20s as far as down on our numbers to fill our slots. So what that does, it puts each shift way under the staffing minimums. And as a result, you heard him talk about workers' comp issues, and that's anything from actually fighting a detainee, responding to a fight. We had one guy that, they slip on the floor, or, how we do. So we had, how many workers' comps in the last, was it 15 in the last month?
Yeah, in a month, yeah.
15 workers' comp filings due to violence in the jail within the last month. Couple that, so some of them require time off and medical attention. Couple that with military leave. In the last pay period, which would have been the 2 weeks prior, we had 14 of our employees that were off on medical. I think 11 of them were from the jail. I could be wrong on that by 1 or 2. And a lot of those are, their summer training or whatever, so short, brief snippets, but 4 of them are long-term assignments with the military. So that puts us further behind. Then we had, how many FMLAs, Jay? 18?
She's got 18, some of them are rolling.
That may have children, they may have things where they're in and out, but, so guys, I guess what I'm saying is it's not only the hiring and retention issue we're dealing with, it's just the ongoing of daily life of things that we're facing, but everything is ramped up due to COVID and our overcrowding situations. I think Randall did a good job of explaining to you why we're so overcrowded right now, whereas our numbers aren't at 850 like they were, we're at 680, but we've got 11 of our blocks that are, maybe even more than that now, that are dedicated to quarantining, for that period of time before we can put those people out in general pop. So we've got about as many people sleeping on the floor as we did before. Continually challenging our staff. Are we doing enough? Are we getting the right people out? As many as we can. Well, you saw where Randall indicated we're up in the 30 percentile where we're releasing these folks and getting them out. I talked to Matt a little bit today, and Matt is more than willing to revisit any of our plans, and they do a great job of helping us to reduce our numbers. But to be honest with you, we're getting to the point where we're saturated with people that they don't need to be on the street. Jay made a point of our court appearance today. Was it 21?
21 out of custody arraignments.
Out of custody arraignments, and 11 were no-shows. That's not atypical. So a lot of the people, and Matt gave me a number, and he can speak to that himself here in a moment when they report if he chooses to. But we've kind of saturated to the point, the people that we have released that are nonviolent, they're also irresponsible and they don't show up. Overabundance of these people don't show up, and now we're rearresting and they're filling our jails up again. So please keep that in mind as we discuss alternatives and all the things that we need to do to keep our jail safe. Remember, my job constitutionally is to operate our jail in a safe manner for the detainees and our employees, which brings us to the discussion tonight. And with that, Jay, I'm going to kick it off to you to give a brief proposal.
Well, thank you, Sheriff. I guess to start with, one of the sheriff's constitutional mandates is to operate the county jail. And so we take a lot of pride in doing that right. The Supreme Court has said that, we can't be deliberately indifferent, particularly to a known serious medical issue. And so our risk management people have said that COVID is a serious medical issue and we can't be deliberately indifferent. So we have to try to mitigate COVID. We have to mitigate their health because, when they're in our custody, we're responsible for them. So we've got a duty to protect them, not only from physical injury, but from health issues too. So we've talked about a couple years ago or whenever it was about a large expansion, a pod and some low security, minimum security type buildings, and that didn't work. But now we're in this throes of COVID, and it looks like this thing is going to be around a while. I suspect that once it gets through the pandemic stage, whenever that is, they just keep coming up with these new variants, but then it's going to become endemic, and it'll be like the flu and other things, and it'll just always be around, and we'll just have to navigate through it. But I think we're still going to have to quarantine people to make sure that they're negative, that they don't infect our general population. So we tasked our guys that work in the jail that do that every day to come up with a plan that we could some way that we could add some jail beds that we could dedicate to COVID, that we could quarantine these people. Because right now we quarantine them, as Randall said, in a 24-man cell or 24-person cell. And so until we get 24 in there, we don't close the door and start the quarantine. So they might be in there a week and a half before we finally get that 24th person in there. We cut that off, and then we start our 14-day rolling thing. Well, the problem with that is we can't objectively classify. We can't separate the minimums and the medium and the maximum classification on the detainee to keep the axe murderer separate from the fraudulent use of a credit card guy because, we just don't have the space. So we really need, as Randall says, he would like to have 710 individual cells so we could just put them in there and it wouldn't matter how they classified, but we can't afford to do that because, as we know, some of those detainees don't like each other enough, and on the other side, some of them like each other too much. So we have to be able to separate them and move them, where we can keep them safe and keep our people safe. So we've put together a proposal for 230 beds in a minimum security style housing. 130 of those will be dedicated to the female population, and 100 of them, along with the 96 that are in the current work release, dedicated to the males. So we've passed out a copy of our PowerPoint, and we'll just kind of buzz through that. Maybe we will. All right. So we're proposing that these go in the area where the work release building currently is. If y'all have been down there, you know that it sits adjacent to the coroner's building and then adjacent to our Sally Port, our current work release building. So we're proposing that we put 2 of these minimum security units there for 14 to 15,000 square feet for females. Keep in mind, these are our drawings that we did in-house, so these aren't architecture drawings. We have let the architect look at them, and he was kind of pleased with how we had started, but obviously real drawings will have to be made if this is something that goes forward. We estimate, the architect gave us these estimates on the cost for these particular buildings based on a high range, but knowing that things are going up and the cost of building is going up. So quarantine housing for the men, you can kind of look this over. These are 12-person cells, so we can have a smaller cell that we can separate people better. We've got some, let's go back to the women's. We've got some multi-purpose area in there that they can do education and training and parenting classes should they be out of quarantine or be able to do that. So availability for that built into this. Then we've got the men, and this is kind of the overview of it. The current work release building is the one that's labeled WR 1, 2, 3, and 4. Directly east will be one, out toward the corners building in the edge of that parking lot will be one building, and then directly to the south will be another one. And then our proposal is to connect these to the hard jail, because right now they're not connected. We have to walk these people out in the open elements over to the work release building, so this will allow us to connect those buildings together and move them efficiently, no matter the weather. We want to separate booking from intake and not allow those two to commingle. Right now, booking and intake is in the same area, so somebody that comes into jail could be sitting right beside somebody that's just getting released. So the chances of them getting exposed from this new intake, are substantially greater than if we could separate them. So we've proposed to build an additional area onto our existing intake structure to separate the booking area from the release. Our medical holding only has 2 cells. They are negative pressure holding cells, so the pressure is always negative, so any pathogens or anything are always going out and up through the filtration system. But we'd like to double that, make 2 more medical holding cells, and then build a few more exam rooms and a little exercise area for people that are stuck there that will have an opportunity to get out and get some outside exercise. Then we want to expand our courtroom down there to make more area for people to come in for these out-of-custody arraignments and the in-custody arraignments. At some point, we know the judges will come back in to our courtroom to have these in-person hearings. So we'd like to increase that in our lobby area there, move some of it over into our current records area. We've gone digital with some of our records, so we don't need as much storage space as we did when we originally built the building. So we'll be able to utilize some of our records storage area for this courtroom expansion. And then we'd like to build a warehouse type building out back as we bring supplies and uniforms and toilet paper and various and sundry items that they need back in the jail, to bring them in there and let them stay in that area for a period of time before we bring them directly into the jail, so any pathogens that might be on them have a time to abate, sitting in this separate storage area instead of sitting in the jail and rolling them down the hallway to through the kitchen and all that. So that's kind of our plan for that. You can see this next picture shows what we currently have, and then the additions that we're wanting to do are in red. So that's our kind of our plan for that. One thing that we'll need to address is our generator will have to be moved and probably have to be increased, or another one added. We got a report from the National Guard, did a needs assessment and a site assessment some years back, and said that we really should have a natural gas powered generator, because if we have some major event and the road's closed and they can't get diesel fuel to us, that you could always operate off natural gas. So we think maybe this would be a time to add a natural gas generator, keep our diesel generator as kind of a backup. But those are just our internal thoughts. And then this is a little note that we got from our architect, who kind of gave us some cost estimates that he would want to have a work session with us and we do some real drawings and all that. So that's where it would get into some costs to hire him to develop these drawings. So that's kind of the end of our show. Well, I'll go back to this page of our complete building. All this stuff in red, except for the courtroom, could be done without interfering with our day-to-day operations. This is all done on the outside. There would be no interference with our day-to-day operations, except for the courtroom, until at such point we had to cut 2 doors into the wall, into the existing wall. So this could all be done and not interrupt our current operations at all. So that's one of the good things about this. So anyway, that's kind of what we put together as far as needs assessment. And keep in mind, this is just to try to get us some relief for COVID and short-term relief, but this is by no means a long-term plan. You know, the Northwest Arkansas Planning Board says about, 30 people a day are moving into this region. So, you know, that's nearly 1,000 a month moving into Washington-Benton County. So, you know, they think we're going to double in 20 years, our population. So, you know, Springdale's building new schools every 3 or 4 years. The hospitals are growing. Everybody's growing, so we're going to have to grow too. I know the Criminal Justice Coordinating Committee is just getting their feet on the ground, and I guess we'll have a report in a bit from them. But, you know, they're going to have some ideas. But, you know, we're Randall, whenever we get the report in from the jail inspector, he's gonna, he'll give you that report, but he's saying with COVID, our operational capacity needs to be between 450 and 500 people, so, you know, we're 150 over that, so. We gotta do something. I know there's some money that the federal government sent our way, whether or not we can use that for COVID relief, I don't know, but these are some genuine needs, and we wanted to address them to you, and then see if anybody has a way to bring it to fruition. And I'll be happy to let the sheriff
Thank you.
answer any
Any
questions you might have.
questions? Justice Deakins?
Can you, well, we shut down on the new women's, the building, the female housing unit that you're asking for, there were a couple big rooms there in the center that don't have any labels on them. What exactly would that be used
We
for?
would put our current, we have women 309s that do the kitchen prep work, and so we would put day shift on one side and night shift on the other.
And you're saying the rooms off, I mean, it's to the left of the screen there. Those are the multi-purpose rooms you were talking
Yeah,
about?
the general multi-purpose rooms, those are, would be like, you could have education classes or different things, whatever you needed to use them for.
You know, I continue to be excited about the alternatives that we can explore with the Criminal Justice Coordinating Committee and things like that. But to me, COVID has brought us a new reality in a lot of ways, and this is a no-brainer. We've got to do this. And I've been in conversations with the sheriff and his staff, and, you know, the thing that hits me is, you know, we decide to do this today and we break ground. We're probably 18 months from even being able to cut the ribbon, right? I mean, and I think that's a very optimistic time frame, especially when we know construction like it is around Northwest Arkansas right now, the prices are only going to increase. You know, this being so COVID related, I'm completely comfortable that we can take this out of American Rescue Plan money and use these monies to help these individuals out, help the sheriff department out. There's item number 10 on our agenda tonight, and that's us working with the sheriff's department to try to get them some initial funds so that they can go out and start working with their architects and getting some more solid costs of what this is going to take. So, you know, I just want to say I appreciate you guys drawing this up and coming to us to see this. Like I said, it's a no-brainer. We got to keep your people safe. We got to keep the public safe, and this is something that's absolutely a duty that's constitutionally reserved for the county level and specifically the sheriff, and this is something that everybody in Washington County benefits from. And so it checks a lot of boxes for me, so I really appreciate you guys. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The plans that they drew up, say back in 2019, when we were, or 2018, we were considering building the pods. Is there any plans for those plans that you had that, I guess the architect already drew up the plans for you, didn't he?
Well, we didn't draw up any plans, we just had sketches like these.
Oh, they were
is
just
all we did,
sketches?
yeah. So
He
we
didn't
we didn't have
actually-
any actual architecture drawings, we just had some sketches put together and.
And he did the presentation, the architect did the presentation for the
Yes, yeah.
court
He kind of
members?
did a study and tried to determine kind of how our growth pattern had been and was what he projected it to be, and population of the county and of the jail, so, but yeah, he just kind of had some sketches put together.
Would it be possible to kind of merge a little bit of that one and this one together in order to
Yeah, I
keep
think
up with the
so.
growth?
Yeah, I think so, yeah, you know, the question that we'll have to address is, and we'll have to
It's
get
all
Ryan's
COVID
input
related, and we
on
need to
that,
grow.
But, you know, as the architect we've been talking to is one that designed and built the building, his company, that company. They also did the Juvenile Justice Center when it was built, South Build. So that's who we've been working with to get this preliminary information. That was through a construction manager type arrangement. and not necessarily hiring a general contractor, but using the construction manager.
Would this
and then
go out to
using him
bid?
To hire the subcontractors and to oversee it, and be our agent to oversee it, make sure it's done to the proper spec. So if we're able to do it that way, then yeah, that's who we'd probably prefer to use, just because he already has the current building drawings. He already knows the layout of our building. He knows our operation, and frankly, that's about all they build is jails. So, jails are pretty unique in that, jails and hospitals, they're kind of unique in their design and construction. So we'd like to get somebody that.
If you're comfortable with him and their
Oh, yes,
firm,
yeah, we
and
are.
have the confidence in that, then that's what counts.
Yeah, I think he did a good job for the county, or their company did a good job for the county in 2015 or 2005, whenever we took possession of that jail. It's been a good product for the last 15 years.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right.
Item number 6 on the agenda is a report on the Community Alternate Program. Mr. Nick Robbins, thank you for joining us tonight.
Absolutely. Appreciate the opportunity to come and give you all an update on the program. So we started, it was about, our first client came in about 7 weeks ago. So we've got 6 current clients in the program. We've had a total of 9. 3 of them did not work out for various reasons. The one thing that I would say is exciting is we're getting a lot of judicial referrals. So the public defenders and the prosecuting offices really embrace what we're doing and is looking to work with these individuals to look to defer them, to not to house them any longer in the jail than they need to. And these are typically the individuals that are coming to the jail 11 so times. And so they're not going to get a long prison sentence no matter if they get charged on all their charges. It's more so, how can we invest in these individuals this time around so that they don't come the next time? So just some basic facts out there. So we've had a total of 19 referrals. 12 of them we accepted. They were a good fit for our program. And let's see. We are at 100% employment rate, so everybody that's in our program is working. Of them, they're all attending mentoring meetings and counseling sessions and meeting with their staff on a weekly basis. One number that stood out to me after I had my staff pull some stats is each of these individuals have a significant substance abuse problem. And just keep in mind, they're from this community, and we don't lock our doors. We're not even going to touch them. Like, if they want to walk out the door and go use drugs, that's what they can choose to do. We have done a total of 34 drug tests, and 2 of them were positive. That is hugely significant for a population that struggles to go even a day without using, to knowing the majority are clean, they're sober, they're choosing to be. We're not forcing them to be. They're choosing to be in the program and work to different things. We got guys that are paying taxes for the first time. We got guys that for the first time ever have a job, so that's exciting. We got a guy that is the first time he's ever paid child support, and the mother of the child actually reached out, basically in shock of what I just received, and is considering letting him be a part of his child's life now. And this is many, many years of not paying child support. So family reunification is really important to us. So we work to navigate those relationships either in our counseling sessions or just as the day goes by. So that's exciting. We have one client who his fiance gave birth right before he went to jail. And this individual was actually in church and was starting to go into a small group and felt convicted that he had not been showing up to his probation appointments. And so he went and turned himself in. And so when we got this individual, what's so awesome is he wakes up early so they can they can have breakfast with his fiance and his child. And then he still attends class. He still goes to his counseling appointments, and he still works full time. And every day I've seen this guy, he tells me thanks for being there, because he was facing a year and incarcerated for, it was the third time he had stopped showing up to his parole appointments. But what's unique about this individual, and what's very common with the clients that we're serving, this guy had not committed a new crime since 2017. So these individuals, typically the reason they're going back is for not showing up to appointments, not paying for things. They're struggling in life. And so we're really excited that you've given us the ability and the judicial system has embraced this opportunity to invest in these individuals and giving them something the first time they've ever had in their life. Because the majority of these 6 that we're working with do not have healthy family members. We spend a lot of our times trying to keep their family out of our building because it's not a healthy situation, and make sure they're not handing them anything or the craziness that we're dealing with. We know these people were raised in this, and so we're giving them an opportunity to understand what a healthy life looks like. Let's see. Right now, all of them are attending classes, and it's the Change Company is who we use. Is evidence-based material that's used primarily in the federal system. We got classes such as personal growth, managing your life, change plan, maintaining positive change, and responsible thinking, as well as a feelings class, and they go to mental health counseling. So we're really excited about where everything's going. The 3 individuals that didn't make it, it became very clear to us early on that they were using us to get out of jail, and all 3 of them are currently sitting in jail with a similar charge to exactly why we got them out of jail. So we know everybody we give this opportunity to won't make the most of it, but we're excited that 6 of the 9 are still there, and they're grinding hard every day, doing things they've never done before, because we're challenging them on a regular basis. So we appreciate the opportunity, and I'll welcome any questions that you have for me.
Nick, it's a very, very positive report. It makes me smile, and if you keep doing this, I think we'll see if we can find a way to expand that program, because it's
Appreciate that.
the neatest thing I've heard and heard in a long time. Any questions for Nick? All right, thank you, sir, and why don't you stay right there, because I think you're next also. Item 7 on the agenda is a Criminal Justice Coordinating Committee update. Nick and Prosecutor Matt Durrett were, I think they were elected co-chair of the Criminal Justice Coordinating Committee. But I think the real answer was they were the first 2 to raise their hands.
I think the only 2. Yeah, I think it was, I think my nomination was an act of revenge from Nick for my nominating him. So it was kind of crickets, frogs, and tumbleweeds when it came time for volunteers for it. So anyway, here we are.
So do you want to discuss the 3 areas we're going to focus on?
Yeah.
Are you going to talk about the position?
Yeah. Okay, so right now we're focusing on we're trying to set priorities of increasing the efficiency of the system, and what can we do to speed things along, to figure out what the problems are, the issues are in the system, and see what we can do to fix them. And there are 3 main priority areas, and then we identified 3 priority areas, and then there are several subsections within those. And right now, it's still, unfortunately, we spent way too much time spinning our wheels. We spent too many meetings talking about meetings and talking about how we're going to meet and talking about what we're going to meet about and what we're going to talk about and then talking about what we're going to talk about when we talk about it. So we're slowly but surely we're coming along, and what we've done is we've identified main priorities and then different subsections within those. I guess we've kind of grouped things into different categories. But the three priorities are the pretrial justice and risk-based pretrial decisions. The second one is programming opportunities, and then the third is court processing. And people place different priorities on different things. My priority is pretrial justice and risk-based pretrial decisions, because a lot of this is one thing that I think I'm placing a lot of importance on is pretrial services, because to me, based on my experience and from the chair that I sit in, the driver of a lot of this and the thing that's really clogging up the system are failures to appear, because failures to appear, you've got two areas that I think pretrial services could really benefit the system. And it's the two main drivers of the inefficiency in the system, I believe. The failures to appear, and then the multiple arrests. You have, as Major Denzer said, the people that come in, they average 11 bookings. So each person that comes in, their average is they've been booked in 11 times. And I think as Major Cantrell said, with the people that have been arrested, or a lot of the people that are waiting on the pretrial, 250 or so, there are 800 charges. So what you're seeing is a lot of people failing to appear, and a lot of people continuing to get rearrested, and so they continue to get rearrested, and then they bond out or they're released to OR, and there's no one to look after them, no one to do anything, no one to remind them of a court date. And I understand, part of me was torn at the beginning of all this when you're talking about pretrial services, especially with failures to appear, is these are adults. And, my initial thought was, they ought to be able to keep up with a court date. We shouldn't have to follow them around and remind them of everything. But quite frankly, if following them around and reminding them of court dates helps get them to show up, then I'm in favor of looking at it. I mean, it's nothing to just dismiss, because I've been keeping track of the numbers, and I have not kept track of Judge Taylor's numbers, but what I've been keeping track of is are the number of failures to appear from Judge Lindsey's court since we started in person back May 6th, and then I've been keeping track of the failures to appear from arraignments. And so from May 6th to last Thursday were the most recent numbers I had for Judge Lindsey. We had just over 202 failures to appear. Year to date from arraignments, we were at 711 failures to appear. So if you do the math, you're going to have well over 1,000 failures to appear just from arraignments, and not quite that many from Judge Lindsey's courtroom. But I mean, you're looking at the possibility of 2,000 failures to appear. And these are people, some people, are forgetful. Some people are on drugs and aren't paying attention. Some people are evading justice. There are a lot of different reasons behind these failures to appear. And I think it's one thing that we're looking for is identifying what's causing these failures to appear. Because some people some people have multiple failures to appear, and so some people it's just apathy. Some people it may be forgetfulness. It may be that they're just so disorganized that they don't remember when their court date is. Some people it's they're on drugs and whatnot, and they don't care. And I think that if we can find a way to address that, then that could be very beneficial. because right now our system's grinding to a halt. And if you have a system where you can allow people to get out, but you have not just somebody following them around and telling them when to show up to court or giving them a call, but looking for services for them, because a lot of these people who are booked into the jail, regardless of whether or not it's a drug offense, a lot of them are addicted to drugs, and a lot of these offenses are drug related and are drug driven. And so if there's some way to provide services for those individuals, we can look at more of the diversion type programs if you've got some system in place to where you, instead of just, they get out and they get a court date and you say, okay, we'll see you in 30 days. If you could have something to where they show up, they're already starting to get on the right path. Because I think especially with a lot of the nonviolent offenders, I think we can all agree that society is better off with these individuals having a steady job, supporting their family, paying taxes, as opposed to being locked up. I mean, there are some people that just have to go to prison. I mean, that's just a fact of life. But I think that a lot of people you can look at and say that society can benefit more if we can get them turned around, just like the drug court program, which I'm a big proponent of, is if you can get some of those people turned around, if you can get them turned around where they're out working a job, just kind of like what Nick's doing. You get these people out. Some of them have never had a job before. Some of them never paid taxes before. If you can get them out there paying taxes, if you can get them out there paying child support, if you can get them out there supporting their family, I think society as a whole is better off. So I realize I'm kind of rambling here, but I mean that's one thing that's of significance to me is identifying the reason behind the failure to appear and seeing if there's a way that we can cut down on those numbers, because quite frankly, the system can't handle 2,000 failures to appear, because the jail can't handle it, and we can't just keep releasing these people and just hoping that they're going to show up again. We're going to have to do something to cut down on these failures to appear, because otherwise, our numbers have gone down since we started back up in court in terms of individual or average per prosecutor case number. They've dropped, but my fear is that that's just it's just temporary, because a lot of these are because these individuals have failed. We've got a lot of failures to appear. So I'm concerned we're going to have a lot come back in the future. So I think that's a big one thing that I would like to stress is identifying the drivers of these failures to appear and seeing what we can do, and seeing what we can do to prevent people. Ideally, in a perfect world, when someone gets arrested and they're released from jail, whether they bond out or they're released on their own recognizance, that's the last time they go into jail. And that's one thing that should be our focus. And so, if there's something that we can do to get these people a head start, because someone that gets arrested on some type of drug-related charge or some other charge that is drug-driven, we know that part of our recommendation is going to be drug treatment. And if it's not, when they get into probation, if probation identifies it, they're going to require it. So it makes sense to me to get a head start on that, and because the quicker you can get that process going, then the quicker that person can be off of the probation rolls or whatnot. That's kind of our goal, is to get all these individuals that we place on probation to successfully complete all the programs. So anyway, so we've broken it down into several things, but that's the big thing, because we're running out of space in the jail. We just heard, and we can't just keep filling it up with failures to appear. We've got enough violent people in there. So if we can cut down on the failures to appear, then that can go a long way. With the programming opportunities, we're going to look at earlier entry into diversion programs, just like kind of what we're doing with Nick's situation is someone gets arrested, and our office is committed to trying to get people into drug court and veterans court earlier. If we can identify individuals, that's something that we're certainly willing to look into. And so, diversionary programs can be a useful tool, provided that there's something to them as opposed to just a free pass. I think that with these diversionary programs, there need to be some sort of corrective measure in it in terms of some type of treatment, some type of educational programming. I'd say programming, that kind of is an odd word to use, but some type of educational job training, whatever. We're also looking into the possibility of a mental health court. So that's something else on the horizon. That's something that we'll need to visit with probably people in Sebastian County and Craighead County where they've looked into these issues. Lastly is the last priority is the court case processing. So this is kind of, it repeats some of the other stuff, but because a lot of it depends on the failures to appear. We're also looking at continuing doing the Zoom. That's trying to be efficient. The problem with Zoom, though, is just working out some of the kinks because technical difficulties always arise. But if we can get Zoom to do a plea from someone who's in the Benton County Jail without having the sheriff's office go up and bring them back for a 30-minute, actually a 15-minute plea, if we can do Zoom in different places, that's something that would be good. So what we're doing is, and Nick can speak a little bit further on this, is we're breaking it up into priority areas, and then we're further breaking that up into work groups, sort of subcommittees, so that we're not all reinventing the wheel. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Nick and let him do his part.
Yeah, so basically, as a group, what we did is we created a map, day of arrest to day of release, and walked through every single process with every single person that touches them within that process, and created this very significant map that I myself was not aware of about half of it. It was very detailed. So what that did was that showed us areas of growth that we can have. And so there were simple ones. There's one that we've already started a committee we're working on that could potentially decrease 30 days worth of jail time per person. That's very significant. And so there's a couple things that need to happen. There's some investments that need to be made that ultimately will come back to all of you and say, hey, if we invest X amount of dollars in these new policies, we're able to decrease 30 days of somebody, let's say on average, Sheriff know way more than me, let's say it's 3-4 months on average, they're sitting in county jail. That makes a very significant difference. And ultimately, the only reason we found out that was even a deficit, an issue, is because we were all sitting around talking about, hey, me in particular, my program, I want my people quicker. If somebody's been identified within 72 hours of their incarceration, why am I waiting 30 days for them to be sentenced to my program? And then a couple people asked some questions. Judges weren't aware that was actually happening and why. And after bouncing back and forth, we go, I think we need to create a committee because I think we can solve this problem. And so those are the type of things that we're working on. It's taken us quite a while to get to that point. NIC was giving us the technical assistance, leading the meetings. They were finished as of last meeting. So our next meeting, they're stuck with me and Matt leading this thing, and we're going to do the best we can to keep the train moving forward, maybe a little faster, because our jobs depend on it. So we have a very rooted interest in this being more efficient. And so basically what we're ultimately going to need is we're going to need investment. You made a huge investment with the study. You said, hey, let's invest a lot of money to do a study to better understand our gaps and what our issues are, what we do well and what we don't do well. And then our next request, and the sheet that I gave you was the criminal justice coordinating coordinator is a position we're looking to hire, is what we were recommended from day one, a person that they're going to be hired, and they're going to basically be the one person 40 hours a week focusing on herding cats, pulling all the data from all of our committees, going in, and so what we don't have time to do, yeah, we're co-chairs of this. I don't have time to go sit down with all the different judges, and I don't have time to go sit, Ozark Guidance Council. I don't have time to sit with all these people to understand the issues and what needs to be different in each area, but this person would be doing that. Would they be moving the ball continually in between the meetings and then helping lead the meeting as well? So based on basically a proposal that was in another state, I believe it was South Carolina, that position, they recommended $78,000 for the position. As you can see, for the duties for the position, this person will be writing grants. This person, because there are grants out there that will cover costs for a lot of the things we're looking to do. This person will be meeting with the different stakeholders. It'll be a full-time job. We thought more in line in our area for $65,000 to $75,000 to be able to hire somebody that's competent. We're going to have to hire them from somebody, because the person that we're looking for is not unemployed, sitting at home waiting for a government check. They're putting in the work. They have years of experience in the field, and so we're looking to poach somebody really good that could, what we look at as a $65,000, $75,000 investment, could change this process in the millions. So literally, if we put a dollar figure on just the 30-day change we're hoping to make, it would be a significant amount of money. And so on top of that, and speaking with Judge Woods, we also know we needed some extra funds throughout the year for like data collection and different studies that we want to purchase. Because yeah, it's great that we pull our own numbers, but it'd be really great if somebody else pulled them for us, kind of get a different perspective that way, see things a little differently. So in total, our request for investment for the next 12 months would be $125,000. That would be that staff member's position, as well as the technical assistance and the benefits. And then we would request that person to report to the county administrator, somebody that works for the county, somebody that's not a stakeholder in this process. Because if we let Matt hire somebody, then that person would listen to what Matt's saying more than listen to what I'm saying. We get along really well, but we're also on a different spectrum of what we do in this process. So just to be able to have somebody that's not going with an agenda, that instead is working to benefit the county as a whole, would be important. Any questions?
And also, you know, Nick and I are simply co-chairs of this. So, I mean, when he's talking about herding cats with this position, really, that's a lot of what we're doing, is we're running meetings, we're just trying to get everybody together, and we're trying to keep everybody on topic, because this isn't the Nick and Matt show. You know, this is a collaborative effort, and so that's why it wouldn't be good to have someone that I pick to do this, or that Nick picks, because, you know, it's not just, we're two people, and while we may be co-chairs, we're all peers, we're all equals on this committee. So everyone's got an equal voice. We're just the ones kind of, you know, who are directing the meetings. So that's why it's important for, I believe, the position to report to someone, a non-stakeholder.
I appreciate you guys' presentation. There's a couple things that I wanted to comment on. This was recommended to us by our justice study that came out last summer, that we have a staff person, they have some sort of funds, and unfortunately, we just couldn't get it off the ground last year. If there's new members of the public or members of the court that have not read that justice study, I highly recommend you walk through that document. It's not a quick read, but it's very informative, and I think it's very much worth your time. I understand the frustration of the FDA problem, to where you know, there's not really a good answer there, so I really appreciate you guys going after that. I support this. We gotta get some metrics. We have to have some metrics of how we're gonna evaluate if what we're doing is effective. So I would really highly recommend you gentlemen in the committee, please develop some metrics that are gonna let us see if this is working or not. And then this is for the court. I think there's a wonderful opportunity for us to partner with our municipalities in some of these costs here, and so I challenge us to figure that out. I'm fully for this. We've gotten some commentary recently from some city leaders about our jail situation, and I think that was a great opportunity for us to partner with them and share some of these costs. And so I challenge us to start thinking about that and how we do that. So I appreciate the presentation. I thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
If I may, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Thank you. Matt, you said that the coordinator would report to a non-stakeholder. Did I hear you correctly?
Yes.
Who is the non-stakeholder? To the county, to the
Yes.
law enforcement, to who?
Well,
Anybody in the judicial system,
you know,
Okay.
criminal justice system.
Anybody in the criminal justice
Correct.
system? Okay. Because when you said non-stakeholder, I'm like, well, you know.
Right.
and non-stakeholder, that's kind of a broad term,
Very
and
broad.
I mean it's probably overly broad, because when I say non-stakeholder, I'm more concerned about that person reporting to someone on the committee.
Okay.
That's my big concern, because
Okay.
we're all stakeholders in this.
Certainly.
So I mean non-stakeholders.
I just wanted some clarification on that.
Right, non-stakeholders is probably too broad of a term, because,
Okay.
it's saying the non-stakeholders, you're gonna have to find somebody walking down the street who's, but that's a taxpayer, so they're also a
There you go.
stakeholder too, but in
Okay.
any event, yeah, that's kind of what I mean. I think it needs to be someone,
They have to be familiar with what
so-
criminal justice,
right, someone familiar with the system, but not directly involved with the committee.
okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
That would be my opinion and my preference. Obviously, I mean, the funding is up to the quorum court, and so probably the selection of someone would be up to the court, but that would be my preference.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I wanted to thank you both for your work on this. I read through that report last year, last fall when I was running for this position, and know that a lot of the things in that report talked about data and talked about looking at data from the whole system from top to bottom. So I think that I agree that is really a key component to all this, is being able to collect that data, to analyze that data, and to make decisions based on that. So I think, that's really on the right track. Also, yes, criminal justice coordinator was one of the major, recommendations in that. My question is, where would that position sit within, who would that position report to? Would that be reporting to the county judge or?
Yeah,
Okay.
county administrator, somebody within the,
Preferably somebody within the administration, but, I mean, obviously, that's really up to, I'm assuming that's probably up to you all in terms of the funding and the hiring, so, I guess that would be the most logical, let me say that would be
The most logical answer is the county judge.
right, that would be the most logical.
Okay. And then just my other question, just sort of about the workings of the committee. I know, y'all, when y'all first started meeting, obviously this was when all of our meetings were virtual because of COVID. And those were being, those were Zoom meetings, and they were being put up, they were they were public, basically. They were being put up on the county's YouTube channel. But the last public meeting that we have on record of the CJCC is back in January. So my question about that is, why did those stop becoming public? Can those, I know y'all are breaking up into committees now. I'm not expecting maybe every committee meeting, but at least the main meetings. Could those be, publicly available again? Or, what was the decision-making on that, and where are we on that?
Well, so at that time, our contract with NIC, who is under the Department of Justice, took over the meetings and leading them. So their technical assistance wasn't available to the public because of how they're housed under the Department of Justice. But this next meeting will be our first meeting that is back to us doing it. So we're looking right now to see what the committee as a whole, what we should be doing, and what the committee as a whole wants to do. I'd say the biggest question is just transparency. So the willingness that mapping that we did to talk about, hey, what we do well and what we don't do well would have been very different if it was public.
I see.
Most of the people wouldn't have said anything. They would have just shut their cameras off and muted themselves, and we would just went along and not noticed any of the issues. So we're just trying to weigh that, and legally, if that's what we're supposed to be doing, then that's what we're going to do. So this next meeting will be the first that we're actually hosting. So we don't even have a link for the meeting yet. We're still going back and forth to see how to best put on that meeting.
Okay, thank you.
No more questions. Thank you, gentlemen. We'll get you back here in a couple months.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, item number 8 is an ordinance that I am sponsoring. It's an ordinance to appropriate $125,000 from unappropriated reserves in the general fund to other professional services line item in the Buildings and Grounds budget for 2021. And this is an ordinance that I move we pass it on to the Finance Committee with a due pass recommendation. This is money to replace the elevator in the annex building. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Justice Lemming.
Is this 125, has this been bidded out, or is this, we know that's the cost, or what is it?
No, that's an estimated cost from an elevator company. If the money's approved, the project will be bid.
Let's move on.
Any other comment? Public comment?
Beth Koger, Fayetteville. I just want to thank this committee for doing that, and thank you, J.P. Johnson, for taking the lead on that, because I'm the one who's been talking about the elevator so much, so I just want to thank you for doing that. I appreciate it very much.
We're gonna see if we can make them go up. Is there any other discussion? Okay, all in favor of, the question is passing this ordinance on to the Finance and Budget Committee with a due pass recommendation. All in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. Motion carries. Thank you. Item number 9 is also an ordinance appropriating $250,000 from the American Rescue Plan Act Fund to the Engineering and Architectural line item budget in the Building and Grounds Committee. As many of you are aware, in 2009, we started the design process to expand and take care of many unsatisfactory situations in the Juvenile Justice Center. The COVID shut that project down. The intent at that time was to have that project completed by the end of 2020 so that there was a place for the new judge, which is Judge Warren's court in the annex, or in the, at the Juvenile Justice Center. The situation, the current situation with the annex is very, very inefficient and very, very expensive for a lot of reasons. And I see Judge Zimmerman. Would you like to address us on this whole issue briefly?
Thank you, Justice Johnson. You know, I've been harping about the size of our juvenile justice complex, and I even found my little newspaper article from 2015 about the safety issues in our lobby and people escaping and kids running out. And knowing that we had the additional judge, Judge Warren, who was elected and took the bench in January, with her being housed at the annex, it makes it very difficult for families as to where they're going. The Juvenile Detention Center is right there in the Juvenile Justice Complex. And so you have transportation of the Sheriff's Department having to transport a juvenile to the annex. Last week, we had a young lady who ran through 2 secured doors, got halfway through our parking lot. Had that been at the annex, you got 71 business right there. So we got really close to having plans with 2 courtrooms down there at the Juvenile Justice Center with the JDC right there, expanded lobby with security. So you have one security area, the officers there not spread out in 2 courts. You have parking for people who come with their children and families. And with COVID, last year I had all of my hearings by phone or by Zoom, and we had over 5,000 hearings by Zoom. I have how many people came through our building. In 2019, we had, and this is just the juvenile court complex, families and children, 43,000 people came through our front door in 2019. 2018, we had 26,143 people coming through. And then in January of 2020, just through our front door, that was last year, 3,327 people came through our front door. So even with 2 different courts, you're having a huge amount of people coming through, and these are children and families, and having it one place makes sense. And COVID shut us down. We were close to getting that bond, and Brian Lester was on it, and then boom. So I really am in support of getting some architectural drawings. We did speak with an architect beginning in November of 2018, and so we've met and we've been talking about this for some time, so I really appreciate your support if you'd think about this. Our population continues to grow.
Thank you, Judge.
Thank you.
Did I make a motion?
You need to make one.
Okay, I move that we pass this on to the Finance and Budget Committee with a due pass recommendation. Is there a second? Okay, discussion? Yeah. You're done, huh? Right. If there's no discussion, all in favor say aye.
Public comment?
Public comment. Okay.
Sorry, I should have sent you an email. We need to make an amendment to this at the recommendation of Bobby Hill. It doesn't change the ordinance at all. Because of the way that the Rescue Act Plan Fund is set up, we can spend out of it. Usually with grant funds, as you know, you have to take it from a grant fund or from a fund, appropriate to a budget line item in a budget. And since there is no budget, but this is an expense fund, we can appropriate and spend right out of it, and it will help with us with our record keeping that we're going to have. And so this one and the next one, both of them, it would basically just be, and I'll have all this finalized for the finance and budget and the corrected ones for finance and budget tomorrow night. But what we are going to do is we're actually going to appropriate $250,000 from the American Rescue Plan Fund, which is Fund 3046, to the engineering architecture line item in the ARPA, American Rescue Act Plan Fund budget. and that will be on the very top in the ordinance title part, on the last line there, budget. It'll actually be 30460108. And so it'll still be going to the 3004 line item, but that's how we're going to denote these so that we can keep up with them. So just let you know that if y'all would amend this one and the next one to come out of the ARPA fund, it would help Bobby out.
We have a motion and a second to amend. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Now let's vote on the main motion again. All in favor, say aye. Okay, sorry about that. Public comment. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to make a quick note that to my knowledge, this is going to be our first, if this passes, the first appropriation of any of the American Rescue Plan funds that we've gotten so far. And I just wanted again to reiterate what I've asked the Budget Committee previously, is that I think we should have, as a quorum court, a larger public discussion about our general trajectory and overall view of how we want to collectively spend these funds, appropriate these funds, instead of just sort of, piecemealing them out here, there, and everywhere until they're gone. I'm not, I think this is a great use of these particular funds. I'm in favor of this, but I think we need to have a broader discussion. I know I'd brought this up to JP Deacons back in June about having that discussion at the Budget Committee. One of the reasons that he gave was that these are still interim rules right now. They're still interim rules. That still hasn't changed, but yet we are appropriating the funds. So I didn't really buy that reasoning back then. I plan to make another request after this meeting that the Budget Committee have a discussion about the greater use of these funds. Thank you.
Thank you. Other public comments? All right, let's vote on the motion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Item number 10 on the agenda, Justice Deacons.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think the first order of business would be I make a motion to amend the ordinance to mirror the previous ordinance, to take it out of to spend the funds out of the American Rescue Plan Fund. Second.
Motion second. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries.
Thank you. Great presentation by the Sheriff's Department and his staff tonight, and we know it's needed. So I make a motion we move this to the Finance and Budget Committee with a due pass recommendation.
Public comment?
Can you hear me now? Can I approach and give you a handout real quick before I talk?
Our system doesn't allow me to talk and hear at the same time,
Give you
so
this.
tell me let me push the button off before you start.
Can I please deliver this to you? I'm going to speak to it, and it'd probably be easier for you to see it closer to you. Thank you. Sarah Moore, Fayetteville. 3 minutes is fast, so I'm going to try to hit the highlights. There was a lot discussed tonight, and I have a lot to say about it, but my time here is brief. What I put in front of you tonight is we've been having a conversation in regard to the jail, and we're looking at the architecture plans that would expand the jail right now during this ordinance. What you have in front of you are the statistics from ACIC from 2013 through 2020. When we were having the discussions in 2017 and 18 about the jail expansion that ended in 2019, you can see that our numbers on arrest or crime activity are actually flat in total. So I just wanted you to have those, because we were talking about the amount of people in the jail, and that, you know, this is a very necessary thing. But one of the reasons the Criminal Justice Coordinating Committee was put together, and it was talked to tonight, was to look at other abilities that we can put in place in the community that actually, you know, don't have to jail our community members. We've talked a little bit about, you know, NIC and Department of Justice, and they have things like the Jail Planning Guide. I'm going to quote directly from it, but it says, jails are part of a complex criminal justice system whose policies and practices directly influence total bed needs. As such, jail planning cannot be done in a vacuum. It has become even more important to approach jail capacity planning as a systems approach that analyzes the connections and interactions of the smaller components of a larger system, taking into account not only jail operations, but also the larger criminal justice system and county population trends. I agree that our population is growing, but we also have seen from the study that was done by the National Center for State Courts that there are alternatives that we haven't put in place today. I've heard tonight folks talking about evidence-based systems that are happening in the federal system that are working well, and so my concern is kind of what was spoken by JP Evelyn Rios Stafford earlier, is that we're already making a decision to proceed forward with more space, more jail beds, when it's like we need to pull back to 30,000 feet. The rescue monies are finite. There's, you know, right now it's 23 million. I think it's 40, I think in total that maybe we're expecting, and we're piecemealing out parts. But talking as a community, because Nick's program with returning home is 210,000. You know, the sheriff's, what he wants to do is like 10 million. The juvenile building's probably 6 million. So when you do napkin math on that, very quickly those monies are gone. Thank you.
Other public comment?
Beth Coker, Fayetteville. I just want to thank you for bringing us up to date on the Criminal Justice Coordinating Committee. I know I've been bugging you about that, and I appreciate that. And it was great to hear, it was uplifting to hear the report from Nick and from Matt about the committee and about Nick's program. And that's all great, but while Sheriff Helter and Chief Deputy Cantrell were giving their report, someone said, I don't know who it was, someone asked the question, so nothing has changed, has it? And they replied that no, it hadn't. But what have we done to make it change? When we got the assessment, the Criminal Justice Assessment Study, as Sarah pointed out, there were several things, and including invest in a robust pretrial services program, have social workers at the jail to help connect people with services. So one of the things I heard, I think it was that Mr. Durrett said, was that about the high number of people that come back in the jail. Well, when I keep up with the jail census, there's usually around, in a month time, there's around 35 to 40 people who are booked into the jail listed as homeless. And so what do you do when you're released from jail and you don't have a home to go to, you don't have a job, you don't have any family support? So if we could address some of those things, I mean, we haven't done that yet, as far as I know, with like the Criminal Justice Assessment Study had suggested. And there was a lot of talk about the high rate of failure to appears, and that is a huge problem. And I don't think that's been addressed yet either. But according to the study from the the National Center for State Courts, between 2015 and 2019, 21% of the bookings at our jail were failure to appears. I don't have a number for that, but that's a lot. 21% is a huge amount. So there again, if we could do things to cut down on the failure to appear, would we really be needing needing this expansion. But it just seems like to jump ahead now and talk about expanding the jail when we haven't implemented the procedures and the recommendations of the experts that we paid to come in and tell us what to do, it just seems like we're jumping ahead without due diligence. I know some people don't like to hear me say that. I'm sorry. So I'd just like to see us take a step back and look and see what we could do. And I know there's a lot of, there is a pressing need now, and I want everyone to be safe at the jail. And I want there to be room for people. But we also have, inmates that we're housing from the federal government and from Madison County. So if we didn't house those inmates, we wouldn't be so crowded. Thank you very much.
Other public comment? Okay, you ready for the question? The question is on the motion to pass the ordinance on to the Finance and Budget Committee with a due pass recommendation. Okay. Discussion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. Motion carries. It's now time for public comment period. We have 12 minutes for public comment. I ask each individual to please limit their conversation to 3 minutes. Any public comment? Seeing none, we're adjourned.